today is all about answering your questions. This comes from emails and being online and our clients and answering questions about team retreats that y'all are having frustrations with.
So today we have 3 questions from a lady named Diane. And her very first question is questions about international shipping issues, custom issues for swag. So getting items into the retreat for international locations, how we do that, how we make it easier, and what we do.
Yeah. So this is kind of good timing because we've just had a bad experience.
Yep.
With customs, and our clients wanted to have fun team retreat, shirts and bring them on site, and they were in Turkey. And so it's, a unique country, and that we've done this, or they've done it for their events multiple times,
yeah.
Different countries, from Thailand to Mexico. So it wasn't something that was the first time. But what was the first time is their package getting stuck in customs and not being able to get it out. So what we learned through that experience, so I don't know, do you remember it was like maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the event that they started shipping?
Yeah, I want to say they sent it within a month of the event.
So and that's an appropriate time, I think. And yeah, so it gets to Turkey before they do. And then we get a notice from the customs people saying, like, I don't even remember what they were saying. It was like, your box is here. What's in it? Like, how much is it?
So a whole bunch of information that they needed that they said that they didn't have.
Yeah. And nobody spoke the language. And so we were asking the property to help, like, hey, can someone go get this box or help with customs or whatever? And what I think we ended up discovering is that because it was written in our client's name and not in the hotel's contact name. So for example, it was the client name and then the hotel.
Yeah.
So, that doesn't connect, I guess, like for somebody to go pick it up.
Right.
And so we had to have the right person's name and then the hotel address. And that was kind of like the trick. But because the name wasn't in that hotel contact's name, no one else could pick it up.
So essentially it had to be an employee, one of the main employees from the hotel. Yeah. It was in their name with the care of the hotel, and then they could have gone and taken care of it.
Yeah. So I feel like lesson learned. Okay, let's find the internal contact at the hotel, put all of the shipping details to them. I think that would have helped.
Yeah, I think so too. Yep. Okay. Well, question number 2 is any unforeseen costs, requests made on site by the team, and how does that get accommodated when it wasn't planned for?
Yeah. A lot of times that can happen where people are just spending money. Sometimes we have clients where everybody has a company card.
Yep.
Right? So what are the rules? Like
what's the cutoff, essentially?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, who's defining what the rules are before we go on team retreat? So I think that Diane was talking about, like, something happened where somebody spent money that they weren't supposed to, but then perhaps somebody else came in and said, oh, it's fine. Like, don't worry about it. But then that messes up your budget. It messes up, like, expectations.
Every other person thinks that they can do the same thing, and then it just adds up instead of the one person.
And then they do it again.
Yep. It's an ongoing thing every retreat.
So, yeah, I feel like one of the things that we've done with multiple clients is create like a what to expect sheet, I guess, documents where it outlines what's covered, what's not, who's paying for what is the company paying for, what is the team member paying for, and what is that cutoff. And everybody has this before you go on retreat. And I think it's really important. Like, if this is your first retreat, making sure that these types of documents are outlined so that the expectation is set moving forward. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
But it changes every client. Like, we have clients that pay pretty much 100% for everything other than laundry service.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have clients where, there's a stipend for flight reimbursements. So maybe the plane ticket costs $1,500 and the company's only going to cover $1,200 because they're trying to manage the costs. So it is different. Looks different for every client. But I don't know, what else have you seen in that way?
The biggest thing that comes to my mind is just people that think that their company's going to cover everything for them, including extra drinks or things like that. And then they do it without talking to anybody, and how you handle that situation moving forward.
Yeah.
With the people and who you address or who you bring into the conversation of this just happened, what should we do? That's probably the biggest thing that I've seen happen so far, is just then you have to address the person and you have to bring the CEO in or try to figure out how to handle it moving forward so that it's not a big deal for everybody else that's there, and other people don't necessarily know about it. But yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, it's all about setting expectations up front and defining what that looks like for your company. Write out all the different things that, we're covering flights and transportation and food, and, maybe it's happy hour and dinner drinks. Anything past dinner is on the responsibility of the team member.
Or the drink ticket situation we're doing. We're doing that right now for a team where they're getting a certain amount of drink tickets every day.
Yeah.
And they can use them however they want. They can keep them to the last day, or they can, just have a really, really crazy last night if they want to. Or they can, spread them out however they'd like. So that helps a lot too.
And I think it helps balance and manage the budget at the end of the day. That's what it comes down to is, we can't, have a crazy bar bill at the end of the day. But setting expectations, keeping track of the documentation. The last thing that's helped too is having an all-team call before you go on retreat.
Yep.
And reiterating what those, whatever it is, those rules are.
Yeah.
Just reiterating, or expectations around drinking. This is a work trip. This is a spring break, go crazy, Cancun trip. And what does that look like for the culture of the company, and making sure that all of those rules and stuff.
Yeah. And making sure that they know if something does come up that we haven't accounted for some weird reason, they know who to address and who to ask for it. Yeah. Exactly. So that's also in the document so that they can look back on that. So, Okay. The third question is finding the correct way to provide team members with tipping guidelines when the company does not reimburse cash withdrawals.
Oh.
So one thing that we have had happen recently was tipping for transport.
Yeah.
That's something a lot of people don't take into consideration before they go on a trip, and we schedule the transport for them. And then once they're on site, the drivers are expecting or wanting.
Especially out of country, like in Mexico, where this happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So the way that we ended up handling it was we ended up putting the tip on the front end. So they received it. The company itself received it, and then they distributed it to their drivers when they saw fit. But there's plenty of other ways to do it. And what are some ways that you've seen?
Well, I think that's such a great one for somebody planning. Thinking about that stuff and knowing the tipping culture is really helpful, because in Mexico, yes, you're going to tip, but in Europe, you're not.
Yeah.
And so knowing tipping culture is really helpful in determining when you're going to have to do that. If you're using a transportation company, asking them, hey, is there a tip included in these transfers, or do we need to include a tip because our team members won't have cash on them? So how can we ensure that these people get tipped?
Taken care of,
which we've done that before. The other thing, though, is letting your team members know that ahead of time, because we had a situation in another part of Mexico where we prepaid tips for the drivers, and then the drivers were still asking the team members for a tip. And and it's it's frustrating because you're I already paid it. And then this gentleman kept asking for more. And so I had to tell him, this has already been paid. You need to talk to your company.
Yeah.
And, he kind of made an argument out of it, but, then you got to call the company, I guess.
Yeah. You gotta take more steps.
But I think it kind of goes back to, like, at least for us, we create like really lengthy documents that outline so much stuff that includes the company culture, company expectations, but it also outlines like the destination and where we're going. So for example, if we're going to a tipping culture, then we're going to put that in there and say like, hey, we're going to Mexico. This is what's typical. This is what's normal. Because not everybody's traveled, as extensively as other people. And
a lot haven't even traveled with a company, which is totally different experience than traveling by yourself.
Totally. Like, how do the new team members know what has been done in the past? They know.
Yep.
And so even like, it depends on what property you're going to. Is it an all-inclusive? Is it not? Because tipping looks different there.
Yeah.
But being able to outline all of those different expectations from the beginning and creating a document that everybody can reference back to. And, sometimes things happen and you need to reference the document in order to take action about something.
It's kind of like the source of truth, like we always talk about. Go back to your source of truth always. And if someone goes outside of the source of truth, you always have that there to go back to, that you can say, it was right here, you didn't read it. Type of thing.
Here's all the details.
Yeah.
But that kind of, just to expand, I feel like all three questions, like to wrap it up, to sum it up into creating documentation around everything and getting to know the destination well so that you can educate people, because it just looks so different.
Yeah.
Like, wherever you go.
Yep.
And just to set people up for success. And if you are or aren't paying for some aspects of the retreat, then that affects what they should know about tipping or what they should know
and
about
how much they should bring.
And how much, The other thing around tipping, so many things about tipping, didn't know, is like, I always encourage team members too to just be generous. Like, carry $20 of ones with you. Like, it's not a big deal. But I don't know. So,
I agree. With the document that we were talking about, also, we include, weather, what to wear. All these different, what to pack. There's places, we went to San Miguel de Allende. I always say that wrong, but that's okay.
Allende.
And we heard it was also Allende. Those are the different ones that we heard while we were there.
If you know, put it in the comments.
Yeah. We'll hopefully say it right. But they have a decent amount of bugs. They're not bugs that will bother you a lot, but it is really important to have the bug spray and stuff like that you don't think when you're in a different part of the country. Cancun and stuff doesn't have a ton of it because it's more on the ocean versus this is more centralized and in the middle. So that was one thing I learned about it that I wouldn't have thought of when I was looking it up. The bugs. It's beautiful though.
And I think too, like, as you travel and get to go to different places with your teams, and you start to learn, like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to ask that question. Or
absolutely.
So documenting everything, because it'll be useful for next time. But
well, those are our 3 questions for Diane.
All right. Well, thanks for sending us your questions.
Send in some more so we can do this again. We'll try to do it often.
So, thanks for joining us today. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. And, here to help.